Morning, this is Brian. Today is Tuesday, August 16th, 2022, and I'm here at Mission Trails Regional Park in San Diego, and it's time for a Spotlight on Shrubs video. Today we are going to focus on the California Brickellia, or California Brickellbush. And this is it right here. This is Brickellia californica. It is a mostly evergreen, small subshrub to sometimes fairly tall, wiry branched shrub, woody mostly at the base, lower branches in the base of the plant, and is a member of the sunflower family, the Asteraceae. So it is one of quite a few woody based perennials in the sunflower family found here in Southern California and California in general. And so what we have here again is kind of a wiry branch, kind of loose branching pattern, not very rigid, not very strong, especially in shadier locations. Sometimes they can be kind of sprawled over, and they tend to love growing on rocky hillsides, anywhere from in woodlands and forest to on open hillsides. But they tend to prefer sloped ground, and they like to be where there are a lot of rocks around. Sometimes the rocks, I guess I would assume, afford some protection, maybe especially for the soil, because they do grow in dry Southern California. But so what we have here is a plant that is sometimes quite intricately branched, and sometimes sprawling, and sometimes quite upright. In the shadier woodland locations, they tend to be a little more wiry, a little more sprawled out. There's a lot of plants tend to do that, grow both in shade and out in the sun. And then as you look up here towards the rocks here on the hillside, these are more Brickellia californicas, and they tend to be a little neater and a little more upright out in more sunny conditions. So here we are, right near the historic Mission Dam here in Mission Trails Regional Park, and we've got a nice little specimen here of Brickellia californica. So it has kind of grayish green leaves, slight pubescence, very slight pubescence on top, a little bit more on the bottom. And you can see here the leaves are alternately arranged along the stem. This alternates, and this alternates. And you can see where the axils of the leaves are. You can see a lot of times you'll see some more, what I guess you can call like spur growths. It's pretty common. You can see here at the base of this leaf you have a little stalk right here, or spur, and that's quite common in Asteraceae plants, especially ones that are well branched. So again, roughly triangular in shape, the leaves. As you can see, the leaves are very widely toothed along the edge, almost slightly lobed in some cases, but you see they have a roughly triangular shape. The stems are kind of a lightish brown, and there's a very light pubescence on them. Sometimes a slight peeling of the bark occasionally. Bark further down tends to be more grayish, and it's going to be hard to get some detail on that, but not as much change. But as you notice, as with a lot of Asteraceae, the leaves higher up on the stems are smaller, and the leaves further down are much larger. And that's very common in Asteraceae plants. Very common theme running in that family. So this plant during the spring and summer months produces these relatively inconspicuous flowers. Not very particularly conspicuous, I should say. Rather, you kind of have to look a little more closely at them to really get the details on them. But they come from these long, skinny buds. And from what I understand, well, here we go. Here's a flower, right? Here's a flower head. This is Asteraceae, so these are plants that have flower heads. This is kind of what the flower looks like. And I believe this is the pistillate flower right here in the center of the screen. Just give it a minute to focus a little bit. It's kind of hard because these are very small. Like I said, you have to kind of look closely at them. And these are the flower head buds. Remember that this is a sunflower family plant, so the flowers are composite. And then when the female flowers are pollinated, they turn into these typical Asteraceae seed heads with these little pappus-like flowers with little bristly, or should I say seeds with the little bristles at the end. Very similar in a lot of sunflower family plants. So this plant can be quite scattered. I don't come across it a ridiculous amount, but it can be locally common. I know I saw a humongous stand of it in Trabuco, Lower Trabuco Canyon, or should I say, yeah, Lower Trabuco Canyon, back before the holy fire gutted the area. But I'm sure this plant will probably recuperate from it. These plants usually do. The holy fire of 2018, this was talking about Cleveland National Forest, Trabuco Canyon. There were big stands of this plant growing along the Trabuco Trail underneath a coast live oak woodland, and they were quite tall. They were taller than me, and I'm about 5'7"-ish. So you can see these do have quite a wide arrangement of growth, and since it was in a shadier woodland, the plants were all sprawled out kind of like this. So Brickellbush again has quite a variety of growing conditions. And wherever it's drier, they tend to maybe exhibit some more, maybe some slight deciduousness. You can see this shrub up here is a little more sparsely foliated, as it is kind of dry up here on the hillside. You can see this one's a little more out in the sun, so you can see this one's a little more upright, and it's definitely a little more sparse. It's not quite as luscious as its woodland growing counterpart, because a lot of plants that grow both in shade and sun tend to grow lusher in the shade, especially when we got a lot of moisture retention in the soil, as you can see here, right near the historic dam, which is just through the willows right here. So that's Brickellia californica. I've read somewhere, and I haven't experienced this myself since I haven't done this at night, but what I've read is that this plant is supposed to be fragrant at night to attract nocturnal pollinators. So that's what I've read. I haven't experienced it because I haven't been by this plant at night. But if you do find this plant on a night hike, also, obviously watching out for poison oak and stuff like that, come up to it and take a sniff. It might be really fragrant. In fact, I'm going to go back to the. Well, all I gotta say is it is a pretty cool plant. It should be relatively easy to grow in the garden. I've never tried it before, but I would like to give that a shot. And California Brickellbush. It also has quite a wide elevation range. I have seen it down here within a couple hundred feet of sea level, down towards probably sea level, and it does grow up to a good few to several thousand feet above sea level. I might have seen it above 6,000 feet, I believe. I know there are other species of Brickellia here in California, and a few other species here in Southern California. But there you have it. California Brickellia, or Brickellbush. Brickellia californica, Asteraceae. Live from here at Mission Trails. That will do it for my spotlight on shrubs. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful in identifying yet another piece of our floristic puzzle. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next spotlight.